Okay. Hello, guys. This is Pastor Sean coming to you live from Death Church Radio Podcast, and also Sean C. Stuckey Show on Facebook. And for today's video, it's going to be a long one. It's an hour-long video. I actually recorded it on my phone. And it is going to be the beginning of my new series where I'm going to be going through apocryphal books of the Bible. So basically books that were not put into the Bible. It's not a part of the Torah canon or anything of the Old Testament or New Testament canon. So just going through a new series. It's just for educational purposes only. I've been wanting to do this series for a while now, just never really got time or energy to do it. But now I finally started where I'm going to be going through one Baruch. So there's three of them. It's a canonical book it's an apocryphal book from the canon from the Vulgate, which is a Bible, and different Bibles that are basically from Catholic tradition. So what I'm going to be going through is this through the summary, where I go through the entire Wikipedia article, and then after doing that, with me giving my comments on, and then basically I do an exegesis where I read the entire book. It's only about 6 chapters, and technically it's a two-parter because chapters 1 through 5 is its own book, and then the last chapter is the Epistle of Jeremiah from the Old Testament. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. So yes, we are going to start with part 1. Oh, going a little slow here.
I tried the video option. Okay. Hello, guys. Okay, I tried the video option about 3 times. Nothing's working again. It's just the Chromebook I have on my phone. It's not working too well or properly, but that's okay. We're going to use this. We are going to use the voice recorder option again. So, anyways, welcome to Death Church Radio Podcast, and Sean C. Stuckey Show on Facebook. I am Pastor Sean, and you guys are in for an episode today because I'm going to be going through the book of Baruch. And if you've never heard of this book, I've heard of this, but many, many moons ago. A long time ago is the last time that I heard about this book. It is an Old Testament book, so it's going to be different experience for both of us. And if you have not listened to my show or watched the show last week, it was actually about the 2 college groups that I used to go to up in California 10 years ago when I first got saved. So it was like a story time video. And next week, if I'm not going to Phoenix or am going to Phoenix, so if I'm going to Phoenix, we're actually going to be making a video with my girlfriend, Ray. But if I don't and I end up staying here in Tucson for the weekend, I'm going to be making another video called, which I'm going to be doing for my story time, which is The Lost Art of Disciple Making by Leroy Imes. And if you guys are new to that, because I haven't done this one in a while, I actually just take random parts in the book and read them as a sample for you guys to see if you want to buy the book or not over an hour's worth of time, so you get a good idea what the book is about, what is in the book, what does it consist of. I mean, do you want to buy it? Do you want to use it when preparing for a sermon or for a Bible study, or something to buy a bunch of these books for a Bible study? Just things like that. So this is the book of Baruch, and what we're going to be doing for here is I'm actually going to be playing it on this thing on naturalreaders.com, which it is a text-to-speech program to help me along with this because I mispronounce a lot of words because I don't read that well. So the book of Baruch, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I do apologize if it's going to take a while to load here for the program.
The Book of Baruch is a deuterocanonical book of the Bible.
Okay, so the Book of Baruch is a deuterocanonical book of the Bible in some Christian traditions. Let's go ahead and start there because it took a little while to start there. So anyways, let's continue.
In Judaism and most forms of Protestant Christianity, it is considered not to be part of the Bible. It is named after Baruch ben Neriah, Jeremiah's well-known scribe, who is mentioned at Baruch 1, and has been presumed to be the author of the whole work. 1. The book is a reflection of a late Jewish writer on the circumstances of Jewish exiles from Babylon, with meditations on the theology and history.
So just really quick here. The well-known scribe of Jeremiah's is the one who wrote Baruch, which is chapter 1 through chapter 5. Even though it ends on chapter 6, it is considered to be its own book, which is called the letter of or a letter to Jeremiah, and Jeremiah is a book in the Old Testament, if you guys forgot where that is. So, yeah, this is an apocryphal book, basically that precedes 1st and 2nd Maccabees.
With meditations on the theology and history of Israel, discussions of wisdom, and a direct address to residents of Jerusalem and the diaspora.
The diaspora is Jews. If anybody out there didn't know, this is actually Jews that I just learned about right now that live in different countries other than Israel. So technically, Pastor Sean here would be a diaspora, I already forgot how to pronounce the name because I do have some Jewish blood in me. So
diaspora. Some scholars propose that it was written during or shortly after the period of the Maccabees too. The book of Baruch is sometimes referred to as 1 Baruch 3. See also 2 Baruch.
So there is Baruch. Actually, it's pronounced. This is not pronouncing it correctly. This programming. It's Baruch. So like Farouk. And Baruch, there is a second one, which is something I also didn't know because I thought there was just one of these books. So that could be next month's video after the Q&A and the other stuff that I have planned. So yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Although the earliest known manuscripts of Baruch are in Greek, linguistic features of the first parts of Baruch 1, 3, 8 have been proposed as...
Also with the minus, I just want to do a correction here. With the minus, it's actually when it says 1 equals 1 minus 3 to 8. It's actually chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. So the minus symbol is actually the space of like chapter 1 through verse 1 through 3. So if that confuses any of you guys out there, I actually took this from the Wikipedia article. But you know how we do it here on my channel on the Sean C. Stuckey Show or Death Church Radio. You got to take it with a grain of salt.
Have been proposed as indicating a translation from a Semitic language for...
Okay.
Although not in the Hebrew Bible, it is found in the Septuagint, in the Eritrean, Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, and also in Theodotion's Greek version. 5 Jerome excluded both the Book of Baruch and the letter of Jeremiah from the Vulgate Bible.
Okay.
But both works were introduced into Latin Vulgate Bibles sporadically from the 9th century onwards and were incorporated into the Sixto Clementine Vulgate edition. In the Vulgate it is grouped with the prophetical books which also include Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, and the 12 minor prophets. In the Vulgate, the King James Bible Apocrypha, and many other versions, the letter of Jeremiah is appended to the end of the book of Baruch as a 6th chapter. In the Septuagint and Orthodox Bibles, chapter 6 is usually counted as a separate book called the letter or epistle of Jeremiah.
So the Epistle of Jeremiah is actually the 6th one, and I also didn't mention this at the beginning of the show, but on ebible.org actually has the entire book, all 6 chapters or all 5 chapters, including the epistle. So I will be reading that word for word on here and will not be using the text-to-speech program for that. So let's go and continue with the basic structure. So this is going to sound a bit confusing, and then early evidence of use. So let's go ahead and get into this. So basic structure.
Basic structure, 1 minus 14 introduction, and these are the words which Baruch wrote in Babylonia, and when they heard it they wept and fasted and prayed before the Lord. 1:15 to 10 confession of sins. He Lord hath watched over us for evil, and hath brought it upon us, for the Lord is just in all his works, and we have not hearkened to his voice. Okay, so it's already coming off. So it's a short book that's basically a lamentation kind of thing where the Jews are lamenting and putting the ash on top of their heads and wearing sackcloth. So it's a small book in the apocrypha would be like the actual biblical book of like Amos and also Philemon. So this is a short one. But also said there was a Baruch too. So 2:11 minus 3, 8 prayer for mercy. F for the dead that are in hell, whose spirit is taken away from their bowels, shall not give glory and justice to the Lord. CF. So we're also going to find out here if I'm going to try to determine why this is not in the Bible also. 3, 9, 4, 14, 18 for wisdom. Where are the princes of the nations that hoard up silver and gold, wherein men trust? They are cut off and are gone down to hell. 4, 5 minus 5, 9 Baruch's poem of consolation. 6 messages for those in captivity, for the neighbors of Zion, and for Jerusalem. You have been sold to the Gentiles, not for your destruction, but because you provoked God to wrath. F for the sins of my children. He, the Eternal, hath brought a nation upon them from afar. God, who have neither reverenced the ancient. Okay, so that actually sounds kind of confusing because of how this voice is reading this. So I'll just go ahead and read this paragraph because there's a lot of breaks in here. Because you provoke God to wrath for the sins of my children, he, the eternal Father, hath brought a nation upon them from afar, who have neither reverenced the ancient nor
pitied children. Let no one gloat over me, Jerusalem, quote unquote, a widow bereft of many. For the sins of my children I am left desolate, for they turn from the law of God. Look towards the east, O Jerusalem, and see the joy that is coming to you from God. Next, which would be the letter of Jeremiah.
Chapter 6, see letter of Jeremiah. Early evidence of use no reference to the book of Baruch is found in rabbinic literature. Nor is its text cited. 4:8, a fragment of the letter of Jeremiah in Greek has been excavated amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. But no counterpart fragments survive of the book of Baruch. 9, there are no references to, quotations from, or allusions to the book of Baruch in the New Testament. 4:10, although Adams proposes a general similarity between themes in the later parts of the book and some in the Pauline epistles, particularly Galatians and 1 Corinthians. 11, the earliest evidence for the text of the book of Baruch is in quotations in the works of early Christian church fathers, the earliest citation being in the Legatio Pro Christianis. 9 of Athenagoras of Athens, dated 177. 4, much the most extensive use of the book of Baruch in patristic literature is in the Aphrys Heresis 5.35.1 c. 180 of Irenaeus of Lyons, which draws extensively on Baruch 436 to 5:9. 11. Both Athenagoras and Irenaeus cite these readings as being from the book of Jeremiah. Increasingly from the 4th century onwards, however, Greek fathers tend to cite such readings as from a book of Baruch. Although Latin fathers consistently maintain the former practice of citing these texts as from Jeremiah, and where they do refer to a book of Baruch, are to be understood as denoting the apocalyptic work 2 Baruch 12.
Okay, so basically ancient philosophers and scribes believe that a lot of the early evidence and use of this was based from just the book of Jeremiah. So, okay, let's continue here. For manuscripts and book of Baruch and book of Jeremiah. So this is basically the breakdown and summary of these books. Or of this book, I'm sorry. No, these books. Sorry, it's 2 books.
Manuscripts, both the book of Baruch and the letter of Jeremiah, are separate books in the Great Pandect Greek Bibles, Codex Vaticanus, 4th century, and Codex Alexandrinus, 5th century. Where they are found in the order Jeremiah, Baruch, Lamentations, letter of Jeremiah, 13, in the Codex Sinaiticus, 4th century, Lamentations follows directly after Jeremiah and Baruch is not found. But a lacuna after Lamentations prevents Baruch may have been included elsewhere in this manuscript.
Hold on, what is a lacuna? I'm sorry guys, I have to look this up. Lacuna definition. An unfilled space or interval, a gap, a noun.
Lacuna.
So lacuna. Okay. Anyways, let's go ahead and continue. So lacuna after Lamentations prevents a definitive assessment of whether Baruch may have been included elsewhere in the manuscript.
Neither of the 2 surviving early Latin Pandect Bibles, Codex Amiatinus, 7th century, and Leon Palimpsest, 7th century, includes either the book of Baruch or the letter of Jeremiah. 12. The earliest Latin witnesses to the text being the Codex Cavensis, 9th century, and the Theodelphian Bibles, 9th century. Baruch is also witnessed in some early Coptic, Bohairic, and Sahidic, and Syriac manuscripts, but is not found in Coptic or Syriac lectionaries. 14.
Okay.
Book of Baruch and Book of Jeremiah. The evident variation among early Christian divines as to whether a particular reading is to be cited from Baruch or Jeremiah is generally regarded as relating to the very different texts of the Book of Jeremiah that are found respectively in manuscripts of the Greek and Hebrew Bibles. 4. The version of Jeremiah in the Greek Septuagint texts Vaticanus Alexandrinus is a 7th shorter than that in the Hebrew Masoretic text or the Latin Vulgate.
Okay.
And the ordering of the chapters is very different. With sections from the middle of the book in the Septuagint version, the oracles against the nations found at the end of the book in the Masoretic text and Vulgate. As Hebrew fragments have been found in the Dead Sea Scrolls corresponding to both the Septuagint and Masoretic orders. It is commonly accepted that the 2 versions derive from 2 distinct Hebrew traditions.
Okay.
And that the Septuagint form of the text is likely the older. 4. Benedictine scholar Pierre Maurice Bigard suggests that, if the book of Baruch is appended to the Septuagint version of Jeremiah, it follows on as a plausible continuation of the Septuagint narrative chapter 51. 31-35 in the Septuagint, corresponding to the truncated chapter 45 in the Masoretic text 12. A similar conclusion is proposed by Emmanuel Taub. who notes characteristics of a consistent redactional revision of the Septuagint text of Jeremiah from chapter 29 onwards, correcting readings towards the Hebrew. A revision that is then carried over into the Greek text of Baruch 1:1-3. 8. Suggesting that these once formed a continuous text. 15. Beguer consequently proposes that the gathering of sections from the end of Septuagint Jeremiah into a distinct book of Baruch was
an innovation of Christian biblical practice in the Greek church from around the 3rd century onwards. Okay. So basically stating that this book of Baruch, including Baruch 2, or either the whole thing or portions of it, was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, and possibly that was just ripped from the book of Jeremiah. It says at the beginning that one of his good scribers is who worked with Jeremiah when writing the book of Jeremiah, which is a book of the Bible in the Old Testament. So we'll find that out when I actually read from the book and see. Usually there's something subtle in there. It's like, okay, I can see why this is not in the Bible. Like, I can see why this was, by God's will to be taken out. So,
but that the version of Jeremiah in the Old Latin Bible preceded this practice, and hence did not designate the book of Baruch as a distinct work of Scripture, but included its text within the book of Jeremiah. 12. The text of Old Latin Jeremiah nowhere survives in sufficient form for this speculation to be confirmed. But Beguer proposes that its characteristics may be recognized.
It's actually Bogart. The man's name's Bogart. It's saying Beguert on here.
Beguer proposes that its characteristics may be recognized in the text of Baruch in the early Theodofian Vulgate Bibles, noting that Baruch in these manuscripts is continuous with Jeremiah, and that the end at chapter 5:9 is marked by an explicit in Old Latin form, stating, explicit Jeremy Prophetae.
Okay, which is Latin. I didn't say what the Latin means, though. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it there, and then we will go ahead and go to part 2.
Okay, guys, now heading to part 2 with the Baruch. Number 1.
All right, everyone, now continuing.
Baruch 1:1-14 gives a narrative account of an occasion when Baruch ben Neriah reads the book of these words before the Israelites at Babylon, and then sends that book together with collected funds to be read in Jerusalem.
Okay.
Where the book of Baruch is considered to be a distinct work of Scripture, it is commonly identified as the book that Baruch reads, and hence Baruch himself has traditionally been credited as the author of the whole work. However, the syntactical form of Baruch chapter 1 has been held rather to imply that these words correspond to a preceding text which might then be identified with Lamentations or with the book of
Jeremiah,
in which case comparison may be made with a corresponding notice of Baruch writing down reading the prophecies of Jeremiah. Recorded at Jeremiah chapter 36:12, these considerations underlie an alternative tradition found, for instance, in Augustine, in which all 4 works book of Jeremiah, Baruch, Lamentations, letter of Jeremiah are credited to Jeremiah himself as author.
Okay.
Critical scholarship is, however, united in rejecting either Baruch or Jeremiah as author of the book of Baruch, or in dating the work in the period of its purported context, the Babylonian exile. Rather, they have seen clear thematic and linguistic parallels with later works, the Book of Daniel and the Book of Sirach. Many scholars have noted that the restoration of worship in the Jerusalem temple following by Antiochus Epiphanes could provide a counterpart historical context in which the narrative of Baruch may equally be considered to apply, and consequently a date in the period 200 BCE, 100 BCE has been proposed. Language: the Latin, Syriac, Coptic, Armenian, Arabic, Bohairic, and Ethiopic versions of Baruch are all translated directly from the Greek. 4. The text of which survives in Vaticanus and Alexandrinus, and is highly consistent. 16. Jerome, 5th century, states that no Hebrew text was in existence. 17. And Origen, 3rd century, appears to know of no Hebrew text in the preparation of the text of Baruch in the Hexapla Old Testament. Nevertheless, there are a number of readings in the earlier sections of Baruch 1:1-3, 8, where an anomalous reading in the Greek appears to imply a mistranslation of a Hebrew or Aramaic source. As in chapter 3:4, where "Hear now the prayers of the dead of Israel" is assumed to be a mistranslation of "Hear now the prayers of the men of Israel" since the 19th century.
Oh.
Critical scholars have assumed a Semitic original for these earlier.
Okay, so I do understand that. Hear now the prayers of the dead of Israel. Hear now the prayers of the men of Israel. I do understand that. Being that since I watch every Monday The Dividing Line with Dr. James White, he actually does breakdowns of what it says in ancient Greek language, and how, it's like, it's a pretty big misunderstanding with some words. So with where the translation goes wrong, like there's just certain biblical texts that you shouldn't read when you first become a Christian, that you should just read instead, like New English Translation, New Living Translation, and then ones you can read later. So to get a better understanding of, Jesus and the Bible and things like that. But okay, I do understand that basically it's stating here on Wikipedia that scholars cannot pinpoint exactly where this took place, and being that it was supposed to be the Babylonian exile, but actually it could have been a completely different author that wrote it later. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not holy, though, so keep that in mind.
Critical scholars have assumed a Semitic original for these earlier parts of the book, and a number of studies, such as that of Taub 1819, have sought to retrovert from the Greek to a plausible Hebrew source text. Whereas in the Revised Standard Version, 1957, of Bible, the English text of Baruch consistently follows the Greek in these readings. In the New Revised Standard Version, 1989, these readings are adjusted to conform with a conjectural reconstruction of a supposed Hebrew original.
Okay.
Nevertheless, some more recent studies of Baruch, such as those by Adams and Beguerd, take the Greek text to be the original. 2012, Adams maintains that most of the text of Baruch depends on that of other books of the Bible. And indeed it has been characterized by Taub as a mosaic of biblical passages, especially in these early sections. 19, consequently, variations from the literal Hebrew text could have found their way directly into a dependent Greek version, without having to presume a Semitic intermediary stage. Moreover, Adams takes issue with the presupposition behind conjectural retrovergence to conform to a supposed Hebrew text. That the author of Baruch understood the principle of literal translation and aspired to follow that principle, and yet lamentably failed to do so.
Hold on, I didn't understand. Adams takes issue with the presupposition behind conjectural retroversions to conform to a supposed Hebrew text, that the author of Baruch understood the principle of the literal translation and aspired to follow the principle, yet lamentably failed to do so. Okay, so it doesn't even translate that well either, and most likely is going to be weird, haven't been translated into English. So, okay, so you can kind of get the idea as to why it's an apocrypha book. Still interesting nonetheless. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started with the book of Baruch, chapter 1, verse 1. And these are the words of the book, which Baruch, the sons of Nerias, the son of Messias, the son of Sedecias, and the son of Asadias, the son of Chelcias, wrote in Babylon. In the 5th year, actually Babylon, let's go ahead and look that up really quick for just to make sure I know. It's Babylon, let's see. Okay, I need a biblical definition for Babylon. It's not it. A contemptuous or dismissive term of aspects of a society seen as degenerate or oppressive, especially the police. Oh, okay. Well, it's not. But it's not. Okay. Anyways, let's continue here. Because Babylon was an actual place in the ancient world. So I know it's not Iran, because I did a video where that talked a lot about Babylon. It was the Zoroastrianism video that I did a while back. Anyways, so continuing here. Verse 2, in the 5th year and in the 7th day of the month, what time as the Chaldeans took Jerusalem and burnt it with fire. And Baruch did read the words of his book in the hearing of Jeconias, the son of Joashim, king of Judah, and in the ears of all the people that came to hear the book, and in the hearing of the nobles, and in the king's sons, and in the hearing of the elders, and all of the people, from the lowest unto the highest, even of all of them that dwelt at Babylon by the river Sud, S-U-D, whereupon they wept, fasted, and prayed before the Lord. Verse 6, they made also a collection of money according to every man's power, and they sent it to Jerusalem unto Joashim the high priest, the son of Chelcias, son of Shalom, and to the priests, and to all the people which were found with him at Jerusalem. At the time when he received the vessels of the house of the Lord that were carried out of the temple to return them into the land of Judah, the 10th day of the month, Sivan, namely silver vessels, which Sedaius, the son of Josias, king of Judah, had made. After that, Nebuchadnezzar, so not Nebuchadnezzar, it's a different one. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away Jeshoinus, and the princes and the captives and the mighty men and the people of the land from Jerusalem, and brought them into Babylon. Chapter 1, verse 10. And they said, behold, we have sent you money to buy you burnt offerings and sin offerings and incense, and prepare the manna, and offer upon the altar of the Lord our God, and pray for the life of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and for the life of Belshazzar, his son, and their days may be upon earth as the days of heaven. And the Lord will give us strength and lighten our eyes, and we shall live under the shadow of Nebuchadnezzar. Let me see if I can pronounce this correctly. Let's go ahead and throw it into the Google search here. Pronunciation. How'd you pronounce Nebuchadnezzar? Okay. Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, I'm just going to say Nebo. So, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and under the shadow of Belshazzar, his son, and we shall serve them many days and find favor in their sight. Pray for us also unto the Lord our God, for we have sinned against the Lord our God, and unto this day the fury of the Lord and his wrath is not turned from us. So this does sound like the book of Jeremiah. And ye shall read, it sounds like actually Eli and his sons when they went into war against the Philistines. So, and ye shall read his book, which we have sent upon you to make confession in the house of the Lord upon the feasts and solemn days. And ye shall say, to the Lord our God belongs righteousness, but unto us the confusion of faces, as it is come to pass this day unto them of Judah, spelled Juda instead of Judah, so I'm not sure if they're speaking about the same Judah in Israel. Anyways, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and to our kings, and to our princes, and to our priests, and our prophets, and our fathers. For we have sinned before the Lord, and disobeyed him, and have not hearkened unto the voice of the Lord our God, to walk in the commandments that he gave us openly. Since the day of the Lord brought our forefathers out of the land of Egypt until this present day, we have been disobedient unto the Lord our God, and we have been negligent in not hearing his voice. Verse 20, wherefore the evils cleaved unto us, and the curse which the Lord appointed by Moses, his servant, at the time that he brought our fathers out of the land of Egypt, to give us a land that floweth with milk and honey, like as it is to see this day. So chapter 1, verse 21, nevertheless, we have not hearkened unto the voice of our Lord our God, according unto all the words of the prophets whom he sent unto us. But every man followed the imagination of his own wicked heart, to serve strange gods, and to do evil in the sight of the Lord our God. Chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore the Lord hath made good his word, which he pronounced against us, and against our judges that judged Israel, and against our kings, and against our princes, and against the men of Israel and Judah, to bring upon us great plagues, such as never happened under the whole heaven, as it came to pass in Jerusalem, according to the things that were written in the laws of Moses, that a man should eat the flesh of his own son and the flesh of his own daughter. So it's talking about Ezekiel and Lamentations. Sorry, he's getting swear your cough there. Verse 4, moreover, he hath delivered them to be in subjection to all the kingdoms that are round about us, to be as a reproach and desolation among all the people around about, where the Lord hath scattered them. Thus we were cast down and not exalted, because we have sinned against the Lord our God, and have not been obedient unto his word. To the Lord our God appearance righteousness, but unto us and to our fathers open shame as a parent this day. For all these plagues are come upon us, which the Lord hath pronounced against us. So also the book of Exodus too. Okay, so Baruch 1, chapter 2, verse 19. Or I'm sorry, verse 8. Yet we have not prayed before the Lord, that we might turn everyone from the imaginations of his wicked heart. Wherefore the Lord watched over us from evil, or for evil, and the Lord hath brought it upon us. For the Lord is righteous in all of his works, which he hath commanded us. Yet we have not hearkened unto his voice, to walk in the commandments of the Lord that he hath set before us. And now, O Lord God of Israel, that hath brought thy people out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and high arm, and with signs, and with wonders, and with great power, and hast gotten thyself a name as appeareth this day. Verse 12, O Lord our God, we have sinned, we have done ungodly, we have dealt unrighteously in thine ordinances. Let thy wrath turn from us, for we are but a few left among the heathens, where thou hast scattered us. Hear our prayers, O Lord, and our petitions, and deliver us for thine own sake, and give us favor in the sight of them which lead us away, that all the earth may know that thou art the Lord our God. So you are the Lord our God, because Israel and his posterity is called by thy name. O Lord, go down from thy holy house and consider us. Bow down thine ear, O Lord, to hear us. Open thine eyes and behold, for the dead that are in the graves, whose souls are taken from their bodies, will give unto the Lord neither praise or righteousness. So let's continue. So that was chapter 2, verse 17.
Okay, now going to book of Baruch, part 3.
Okay. Verse 18, but the soul that is greatly vexed, which goes stooping and feeble, and the eyes that fail, and the hungry soul will give thee praise and righteousness, O Lord. Therefore we do not make our humble supplication before thee, O Lord our God, for the righteousness of our fathers and of our kings. So chapter 2, verse 20, page 5. For thou hast sent out thy wrath and indignation upon us, as thou hast spoken by thy servants the prophets, saying, Thus saith the Lord, bow down your shoulders to serve the king of Babylon, so shall ye remain in the land that I give unto your fathers. When did he say that? Don't know about verse 21 there. There's a little too much what is that called? Like pseudo deity for this king here, so I'm not too sure about that. But if ye will not hear the voice of the Lord to serve the king of Babylon, I will cause to cease out of the cities of Judah, but now it's spelled Judah, and from without Jerusalem the voice of mirth, and the voice of joy, and the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, and the whole land shall be desolate of inhabitants. But we would not hearken unto thy voice to serve the king of Babylon. Therefore hast thou made good the works or words that thou sparkest in the servants of prophets, namely, that the bones of our kings and the bones of our fathers should be taken out of their place. And lo, they are cast out of the heat of the day into the frost of the night, and they die in great miseries by famine, by sword, and by pestilence. Oh, that's pretty crazy. Verse 26, and the house which is called by the name hath thou laid waste, as it is to be seen this day, for the wickedness of the house of Israel and the house of Judah. O Lord our God, thou hast dealt with us after all thy goodness, and according to all that great mercy of thine, as thou spakest by the servant Moses in the day which thou didst did command him to write the law before the children of Israel, saying, if ye will not hear my voice, surely this very great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations, where I will scatter them. Okay, so chapter 2, verse 30. For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captives they shall remember themselves, and shall know that I am the Lord their God, for I will give them a heart and ears to hear. And they shall praise me in the land of their captivity, and think upon my name, and return from their stiff neck and from their wicked deeds. For they shall remember the way of their fathers, which sinned before the Lord. And I will bring them again into the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they shall be lords of it. And I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished. Verse 35, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them to be their God, and they shall be my people. And I will no longer drive my people out of Israel, out of the land that I have given them. Chapter 3. O Lord, Almighty God of Israel, the soul in anguish, the troubled spirit crieth unto thee. Hear, O Lord, and have mercy, for thou art merciful, and have pitied upon us, because we have sinned before thee. For thou endurest forever, and we perish utterly. O Lord Almighty, thou God of Israel, hear now the prayers of the dead Israelites and of their children, which have sinned before thee, and not hearkened unto the voice of thee their God, for the which caused these plagues cleave unto us. Remember not the iniquities of our forefathers, but think upon thy power and thy name now at this time. Just want to go back here. Witch is actually not like a witch, like woman riding a broom. It's just W-H-I-C-H. So which caused these plagues. So anyways, chapter 3, verse 7. For thou art the Lord our God, and thee, O Lord, will we praise. And for this cause thou hast put thy fear in our hearts, and to the intent that we should call upon thy name and praise thee in our captivity. For we have called to mind all the iniquity of our forefathers that sinned before thee. Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, to be subject to payments, according to all the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from the Lord our God. Hear, Israel, the commandments of life. Give ear to understand wisdom. How happeneth in Israel that thou art in thine enemy's land, that thou art waxen old in a strange country, that thou art defiled with the dead. Thou art defiled with the dead, that thou art counted with them that go down into the grave. Thou hast forsaken the fountain of wisdom. For if thou hast walked in the way of God, thou should have dwelled in peace forever. Learn where is wisdom, where is strength, where is understanding, that thou may know also where the length of days and life, where is the light of the eyes and peace. Who has found out her place, or who hath come unto her treasures? Where are the princes of the heathen become, and such as ruled the beasts of the earth? They that had their pastime with the fowls of the air, and they that hoarded up silver and gold, wherein men trust, and made no end of their getting. For they that wrought in silver and were so careful, and those works are unsearchable. Chapter 3, verse 19. They are vanished and gone down to the grave, and others are come up in their steeds. Young men have seen light and dwelled upon the earth, but the way of knowledge have they not found, or have they not known, nor understood the paths therefore, nor laid hold of it. Their children were far off from that way. It hath not been heard of in Chanaan, neither hath it been seen in Teman. The Arginenes that seek wisdom upon the earth, the merchants of Meron and of the man, Theman, the authors of fables and searchers out of understanding, none of these have known the way of wisdom. or remembered her paths. Remembered her paths. Like, okay, well, I'm not sure about that. O Israel, how great is the house of God, and how large is the place of his possessions, or possession. Great, and hath none end, high and unmeasurable. There were the giants, famous from the beginning, that were of so great stature and so expert in war. Those did not the Lord choose, neither gave he the way of knowledge unto them, but they were destroyed because they had no wisdom and perished, though through their own foolishness. Verse 29, who hath gone up into the heaven and taken her and brought her down from the clouds? Who hath gone over the sea and found her, and will bring her for pure gold? No man knoweth her way, nor thinketh of her path, but he that knoweth all things knoweth her, and hath found her out with his understanding. He that prepared the earth for evermore hath filled it with the 4-foot beasts. He that sendeth forth light, and it goeth, calleth it again, and it obeyeth with fear, him with fear. Chapter 3, verse 34, the stars shine in their watches and rejoice when he calleth them. They say, here we be. And so with cheerfulness they shewed light on him that made them. This is our God, and there shall be none other be accounted of in comparison of him. He hath found out all the way of knowledge, and hath given it unto Jacob his servant, and to Israel his beloved. Afterwards he did shew himself upon earth, and conversed with men. Those last two verses, I'm not too sure about those. God can't learn anything. He already knows everything. So I don't know about that. All right, so starting chapter 4. Okay. This is the book of the commandments of God, and the law that endureth forever. All they that kept it shall come to life, but such as leaves it shall die. Turn thee, O Jacob, and take hold of it. Walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated. Give not thine honor to another, nor the things that are profitable unto thee to a strange nation. O Israel, happy are we, for things that are pleasing to God are made known to us. Be of good cheer, my people, the memorial of Israel. Ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because ye moved God to wrath. Ye were delivered unto the enemies. For ye provoked him that made you by sacrificing unto devils and not to God. Yet have forgotten the everlasting God that brought you up, and ye have grieved Jerusalem that nursed you. For when she saw the wrath of God coming upon you, she said, hearken, O ye that dwell about in Sion, so Sion, I mean Zion, I'm not sure. God hath brought upon me great mourning. For I saw the captivity of my sons and daughters, which the everlasting brought upon them. Chapter 4, verse 11. With joy did I nourish them, but sent them away with weeping and mourning. Let no man rejoice over me, a widow, and forsaken of many, who for the sins of my children are left desolate, because they departed from the law of God. So the person writing this is a widow? Can a man be widowed? Yeah, never mind. A man can be widowed. Okay. Verse 13, they knew not his status or statitudes, nor walked in the ways of his commandments, nor trot in the paths of discipline in his righteousness. Let them that dwell about Sion come, and remember ye the captivity of my sons and daughters, which the everlasting hath brought upon them. For he hath brought a nation upon them from far, a shameless nation, and of a strange language, who neither reverenced old man nor pitied a child. These have carried away the dear beloved children of the widow, and left her that was alone desolate without daughters. Okay, so he's actually making a reference to women there, but maybe not one to himself or herself. This might be a woman that wrote this. I don't know. Anyway, continuing. Verse 17. But what can I help you? For he that brought these plagues upon you will deliver you from the hands of your enemies. Go your way, all my children. Go your way, for I am left desolate. I have put off the clothing of peace and put upon me the sackcloth of my prayer. I will cry unto the everlasting in my days. Be of good cheer, all my children. Cry unto the Lord, and he will deliver you from the power and the hand of the enemies. For my hope is in the everlasting, that he will save you. And judge and joy is come unto me from the Holy One, because of the mercy which shall soon come unto you from the everlasting our Savior. So chapter 4, verse 23. For I sent you out with mourning and weeping, but God will give you to me again with joy and gladness forever. Like as now the neighbors of Sion have seen your captivity, so shall they see shortly your salvation from our God, which shall come upon you with great glory and brightness of the everlasting. My children, suffer patiently with wrath that is to come upon you from God. For thine enemy hath persecuted thee, but shortly thou shalt see his destruction, and shalt tread upon his neck. My delicate ones have gone rough ways, and were taken away as a flock caught of our enemies. Be of good comfort, O my children, and cry unto God, for ye shall be remembered of him that brought these things upon you. For as it was your mind to go astray from God, so being returned, seek him 10 times more. For he that hath brought these plagues upon you shall bring you everlasting joy with your salvation. Take a good heart, O Jerusalem, for he that gave thee that name will comfort thee. Miserable are they that afflicted thee and rejoiced at thy fall. Miserable are the cities which thy children served. Miserable is she that received thy sons. For as, we talk about the Jezebel spirit, or Jezebel from 1 Kings. Verse 33. For as she rejoiced at thy ruin and was glad of thy fall, so shall she be grieved for her own desolation. Or maybe talking about Babylon. For I will take away the rejoicing of her great multitude, and her pride shall be turned into mourning. For fire shall come upon her from the everlasting, long to endure, and she shall be inhabitants of devils for a great time. Okay, so now for the last part of the show, I will be reading through chapter 4, verse 36 to chapter 6, verse 73.
Okay, and now going to the last part of the show, which ends the book.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and now for the last part of the show. Baruch chapter 4, verse 36, and then continuing here. O Jerusalem, look about thee toward the east, and behold the joy that cometh unto thee from God. Lo, thy sons come, whom thou sent away. They come gathered together from the east to the west by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the glory of God. Chapter 5, so last chapter before the epistle of Jeremiah. Put off, O Jerusalem, the garment of mourning and affliction, and put on the comeliness of the glory that cometh from God forever. Cast about thee a double garment of the righteousness which cometh from God, and set a diadem on thy head of the glory of the everlasting. For God will shew thy brightness unto every country from heaven, or under heaven. From thy name shall be called of God forever the peace of righteousness and the glory of God's worship. Arise, O Jerusalem, and stand on high, and look about toward the east. And behold, thy children gathered from the west unto the east by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the remembrance of God. For they departed from thee on foot, and were led away of their enemies. But God bringeth them unto thee, exalted with glory, as children of the kingdom. For God hath appointed that every high hill and banks of long continuance should be cast down, and valleys filled up, to make even the ground that Israel may go safely in the glory of God. Moreover, even the woods and every sweet-smelling tree shall overshadow Israel by the commandment of God. For God led Israel with joy in the lights of his glory, the mercy and righteousness that cometh from him. Now, chapter 6, the Epistle of Jeremy. And this will be the last part of the show. A copy of an epistle which Jeremy sent unto them, which were to be led captives into Babylon by the king of the Babylonians, to certify them as it was commanded him of God. A copy of an epistle which Jeremy sent unto them, which were to be led captives into Babylon by the king of the Babylonians, to certify them as it was commanded him of God. Because of the sins which ye have committed before God, ye shall be led away captives into Babylon by Nabuchodonosor, or Nabu, king of the Babylonians. So when ye be come unto Babylon, ye shall remain there many years, and for a long season, namely 7 generations, and after I will bring you away peacefully from thence. Now shall ye see in Babylon gods of silver and of gold and of wood, borne upon shoulders, which cause the nations to fear. Beware, therefore, that ye in no wise be like to strangers, neither be afraid of them when they see the multitude before them and behind them worshiping them. But say ye in your hearts, O Lord, we must worship thee. For mine angel is with you, and myself caring for your souls. As for their tongue, it is polished by the workmen, and they themselves are gilded and laid over with silver. Yet are they but false and cannot speak. And taking gold as if it were for a virgin that loveth to go gay, they make crowns for the heads of their gods. So gay meaning happy or joyous. Sometimes also the priests convey from their gods gold and silver and bestow it upon themselves. Chapter 6, verse 11. Yea, they will give therefore to the common harlots and deck them as men with garments, being gods of silver and gods of gold and wood. Yet cannot these gods save themselves from rust and moth, though they be covered with purple raiment. They wipe their faces because of the dust of the temple when there is much upon them. And he cannot put to death one that offereth or offendeth him, uphold a scepter, as though he were a judge of a country. He hath also in his right hand a dagger and an axe, but cannot deliver himself from war and thieves, whereby they are known not to be gods, therefore fear them not. For like a vessel that a man useth is nothing worth it when it is broken, even so it is with their gods. When they be set up in the temple, their eyes be full of dust through the feet of them that come in. And as the doors are made sure on every side upon him that offendeth the king. Just 1 second, I'm going to take a drink. As being committed to suffer death, even so do the priests make fast their temples with doors and locks and bars, lest their gods be spoiled with robbers. They light their candles, yea, more than for themselves, whereof they cannot see one. They are as one of the beams of the temple, yet they say their hearts are gnawed up by things creeping out of the earth. And when they eat them in their clothes, they feel it not. Their faces are blacked through the smoke that come out of the temple. Upon their bodies and heads it sits bats, swallows, and birds, and cats also. Verse 23 of chapter 6. By this ye may know that they are no gods, therefore fear them not. Notwithstanding the gold that is about them to make them beautiful, except they wipe off the rust, they will not shine, for neither when they were molten did they feel it. The things wherein there is no breath are brought for the most high price. They are borne upon shoulders, having no feet, whereby they declare unto men that they be nothing worth. They also that serve them are ashamed, for if they fall to the ground at any time, they cannot rise up again of themselves. Neither, if one set them upright, can they move on themselves. Neither, if they bow down, can they make themselves straight. But they set gifts before them as unto dead men. As for the things that are sacrificed unto them, their priests sell and abuse, In like manner their wives lay up part thereof in salt, but unto the poor and impotent they give nothing of it. Menstruous women and women in childbed eat their sacrifices, but these things ye may know that they are no gods. Fear them not. For how can they be called gods? Because women set meat before the gods of silver, gold, and wood. And the priests sit in their temples, having their clothes rent, and their heads and beards shaven, and nothing upon their heads. They roar and cry before their gods as men do at feast, when no one is dead. The priests also take off their garments and clothe their wives and children. Chapter 6, verse 34. Whether it be evil that one doeth unto them or good, they are not able to recompense it. They can neither set up a king nor put him down. Hold on, I just want to look up the word recompense. I'm thinking that means payback. Let's see. So, okay, I'm just going to do this really quick. Recompense. Making amends to someone for loss or harm suffered. To compensate. Okay, so it's the opposite meaning than I thought. Okay, so verse 35, in like manner, they can either give riches or money, though a man make a vow unto them and keep it not, they will not require it. They can save no man from death, neither deliver the weak from the mighty. They cannot restore a blind man to his sight, nor help any man in his distress. They can shew no mercy to the widow, nor do good to the fatherless. Their gods of wool, which are overlaid with gold and silver, are like the stones that be hewn out of the mountain. They that worship them shall be confounded. How should a man then think and say that they are gods, when even the Chaldeans themselves dishonor them? Who, if they shall see one dumb that cannot speak, they bring him, and entreat Bel that he may speak, as though we were able to understand. Yet they cannot understand this themselves, and leave them, for they have no knowledge. The women also with cords about them sitting in the ways, burn brand for perfume. But if any of them drawn by some that passeth by lie with him, she reproaches her fellow that she was not thought as worthy as herself, nor her cord broken. Whatsoever is done amongst them is false. How may it then be thought or said that they are gods? They are made of carpenters and goldsmiths. They can be nothing else than the workmen will have. They can be nothing else than the workmen will have them to be. Okay. Have them to be. Verse 46. And they themselves made them, can never continue long. How should then the things that are made them of them be gods? For they left lies and reproaches to them that come after. For when they cometh away war or plague upon them, the priests consult with themselves when they may be hidden with them. How then cannot men perceive that they be no gods, which can neither save themselves from war nor from plague? For seeing they be but of wood and overlaid with silver and gold, and shall be known thereafter that they are false, and it shall manifestly appear to all nations and kings that they are no gods, but the works of men's hands, and that there is no work of God in them. For then may not know that they are no gods. For either can they set up a king in the land, nor give rain unto men. Neither can they judge their own cause, nor redress a wrong, being unable, for they are as crows between heaven and earth. Whereupon, where fire falls upon the house of gods of wool, or laid over with gold and silver, their priests will flee away and escape, but they themselves shall be burned asunder like beams. Moreover, they cannot withstand any king or enemies. How can it be thought or said that they be gods. Neither are those gods of wool and laid over with silver and gold able to escape either from thieves or robbers. Chapter 50, or verse 58, chapter 6. Whose gold and silver and garment weareth, they are clothed, that they are strong take and go away withal, neither are they able to help themselves. Therefore, it is better to be a king that sheweth his power, or else a profitable vessel in a house, which the owner shall have use of, than such false gods, or to be a door in a house, to keep such things therein, than such false gods, or a pillar of wood in a place than such false gods. For sun, moon, and stars, being bright and sent to do their offices, are obedient. In like manner the lightning, when it breaketh forth, is easy to be seen, and after the same manner the wind bloweth in every country. And when God commanded the clouds to go over the whole world, they do as they are bidden. And the fire sent from above to consume hills and woods doeth as it is commanded. And these are like unto them, neither in shew nor power. Wherefore it is neither to be supposed nor said that they are gods, seeing they are able near to judge causes, nor to do good unto men, knowing therefore that they are no gods, so fear them not. For they can neither curse nor bless kings, neither can they shew signs in the heavens among the heathens, nor shine as the sun, nor give light as the moon. The beasts are better than they, for they can get under a cover and help themselves. It is then by no means manifest unto us that they are gods, therefore fear them not. Now the last 4 verses. For as a scarecrow in a garden of cucumbers keepeth nothing, so are their gods of wool and laid over with silver and gold. Verse 71, and likewise their gods of wool and laid over of silver and gold are like to be a white thorn in an orchard, that every bird sitteth upon, as also to a dead body that is cast into the dark. And they shall know them to be no gods by the bright purple that rotteth upon them. And they themselves afterwards shall be eaten, and shall be a reproach in the country. Better therefore is the just man that hath none idols, for he shall be far from reproach. Thank you guys for listening. That was a pretty brutal read for the book of Baruch, and there's actually 2 more instead of just 1 more. So thank you guys for listening. Once again, this is Pastor Sean, and God bless. I will see you guys next week.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching.